Confirming he needs the priestess because Sayamiko and Katanino Mikoto are husband and wife, they apologize discussing monsters. Apologizing for lacking her mother's talent, she tearfully questions his suggestion about simply needing a bond. He gently reassures the weeping girl that forming a bond simply means they will always be together. Gazing nervously at the mysterious artifact, she notes with concern that the barrier stone looks somewhat cloudy. Jolted by a harsh voice demanding how long Saki plans to slack off, she scrambles to respond. Kneeling respectfully in the serene shrine, the young woman softly murmurs a reverent prayer to Lord Futsunokami. Continuing her earnest plea to Futsunamatama, the deity of the sword, she begs for the village's protection. Recalling ancient lore, she reflects on Amatsukuni, a heavenly land where humans and monsters coexist under him. The narrative continues detailing how the benevolent god eventually shared his immense power so humanity could protect. Pondering the sacred history of their world, she silently reflects on the chosen ones who received power. Working together throughout history, these revered warriors exorcised terrifying monsters and earned the deep respect of people. Interrupting the solemn reflection, a stern elder reprimands the girl for being late while cleaning the shrine. The legend speaks of the sword-bearer wielding the divine blade alongside the Sayamiko who infuses power. Apologizing for wasting time as an adult, the eldest daughter of the family head endures harsh scolding. The cruel matriarch sneers that her powerless daughter, lacking any real magic, could never become a Sayamiko. Despite her lack of talent, she remembers the festival where Sayamiko and sword-bearers gather to dance. She reflects solemnly on the upcoming sacred festival meant to pray for a year of complete safety. Startled into agreeing, she is ordered to prepare offerings since everyone is busy preparing for the Hudasai. Intervening with apparent sweetness, a glamorous younger woman gently asks their furious mother not to be hard. The newcomer mockingly pities her sister for failing to become a Sayamiko and leaving everything to gods. Hearing her arrival, the gathered crowd immediately bursts into excited murmurs as they enthusiastically greet Lady Hanarin. Adoring onlookers praise Lady Hanarin's exceptional beauty and loudly celebrate her as the esteemed Momoya family Sayamiko. Watching quietly, the older sister acknowledges her gifted younger sibling Hanarin who awakened her powerful abilities early. The prodigious Hanarin successfully mastered purification at a young age while managing the barrier stone against monsters. Surpassing all expectations with her immense magical talent, the younger sister quickly became her parents' absolute pride. The talented prodigy proudly confirms she will perform the sacred dance tonight representing the noble Momoya family. Suddenly remembering a critical detail amidst the chatter, the older sister urgently realizes she must mention it. Gasping softly in quiet realization, she timidly prepares to address her confident younger sister about the threat. Hesitantly calling out to Hanarin, the older sister warns her that the barrier stone has acted strange. Scoffing arrogantly at the warning, Hanarin harshly questions why a completely powerless person is worrying about stones. Panicking as Hanarin furiously accuses her incompetent sister of doubting her Miko abilities regarding handling the stone. Dismissing the warning entirely, the arrogant prodigy coldly demands that her older sister focus on her tasks. Mockingly, Hanarin maliciously reminds her untalented sister to work twice as hard because time will not wait. Attempting to protest but ultimately failing, the defeated older sister reluctantly submits as the commanding prodigy demands. Handing over a list, Hanarin authoritatively orders her sister to fetch supplies and leave the stone alone. Utterly crushed by the unfair dismissal, the powerless sister meekly agrees and turns away for menial errands. As the humiliated girl scurries away, malicious whispers erupt among the bystanders asking if everyone heard that. The gossiping crowd cruelly compares the ungraceful servant sister to the radiant Lady Hanarin while mocking her. Sneering in disdain, a bystander ruthlessly declares they could never foolishly smile while bearing such public humiliation. Enduring the painful whispers, the powerless older sister walks away as the crowd labels her family disgrace. Standing completely alone in the quiet space, she silently reflects on her current painful reality. Enduring the harsh insults, she sadly admits to herself that she cannot deny the accusations. Dropping the massive pile of heavy items, she realizes helplessly that she has nothing left. However, deep down in her heavy heart, a lingering thought continues to slowly trouble her. Remembering her beloved grandmother who raised her, hopeless Saki recalls being told to understand reality. Her grandmother warned that people would always look down upon her missing Momoya priestess powers. Despite facing constant overwhelming humiliation, she firmly remembers the vital instruction to live with dignity. Waking before sunrise, she must dutifully purify the altar with water, rice, salt, and flowers. Kneeling gracefully in the quiet morning light, she sincerely prays with all her devoted heart. Gasping softly, she remembers she must always keep smiling regardless of who brutally tramples her. Chuckling weakly, she recalls that the all-seeing god Futsunushi watches her never lose that smile. Startled abruptly from her intense thoughts, she frantically apologizes for not realizing someone stood nearby. Stuttering in complete disbelief, she tries desperately to form the familiar name on her lips. Looking up with wide eyes, she quietly breathes the name of the handsome Sudu heir. Trembling under his intense gaze, she freezes completely while grasping the fallen items around her. Startled by the sudden intense encounter, she gasps sharply while nervously clutching her dirty belongings. She awkwardly tries gathering her scattered items while feeling intensely flustered beneath his watchful eyes. Continuing her frantic scramble across the dirty floor, she avoids making any direct eye contact. An older woman suddenly rushes in, cheerfully greeting the esteemed Kuchi who has already arrived. The mother respectfully explains that she would have sent a proper greeting party for him. Shocked by the messy scene, Hanarin loudly berates her elder sister for causing a disturbance. Kneeling in total disgrace, a fiercely blushing Saki stammers out a terribly frantic, fearful apology. The angry mother aggressively calls her a fool for ruining goods and disgracing the family. Obediently agreeing to wash up immediately, the disgraced sister cowers while her mother apologizes profusely. Bowing deeply, the humiliated mother apologizes again that Kuchi witnessed such an unpleasant, shameful scene. Unbothered by the chaotic commotion, Kuchi calmly dismisses their frantic apologies, stating it is fine. Quietly turning his head away, the dignified heir smoothly claims he did not see anything. Washing her clothes alone later, Saki feels immense relief that the stains are not permanent. She warmly remembers his past words praising her endless hard work and incredibly dedicated prayers. Recalling another tender memory, she hears his gentle voice reaffirming his position as her fiancé. Blushing softly, she cherishes the memory of him earnestly calling her truly admirable and strong. Shaking her head slowly, the troubled girl tells herself she should not let it bother her. Sadly accepting the harsh reality, she acknowledges that Kuchi is now legally engaged to Hanarin. Staring at her reflection, she forcefully commands herself to smile through the unbearable, lingering pain. Agreeing with her late grandmother, she vows to endure the endless suffering with a smile. Gazing distantly into the beautiful sky, she quietly wonders about her incredibly uncertain, lonely future. Feeling utterly heartbroken, she desperately questions if she will ever genuinely smile from her heart. Hoping for a miracle, she holds on to the tiny belief that someday things will improve. Clinging tightly to that fragile hope, she imagines a beautiful someday filled with true happiness. Deep within her lonely heart, she dreams of someone promising to definitely come rescue her. Pausing in quiet reflection, the powerless older sister suddenly realizes something profound about her past memories. Recalling a distant childhood promise with a crying boy, she assumes he must be a fine young man now. Staring into the tranquil distance, she softly contemplates the enduring weight of her hidden, long-forgotten childhood memories. Gathering her inner resolve, she quietly vows to keep doing her absolute best without ever giving up. Gripping her broom with newfound determination, she resumes her menial chores around the peaceful, sunlit shrine grounds. Gossiping villagers reveal the returning Urushino heir seeks a bride to form a powerful, power-wielding Hyokuri bond. Acknowledging that bonding with a powerful priestess secures Amatsukuni, she quickly prepares to deliver a meal tray to Hanarin. Suddenly approaching with a gentle smile, Hanarin thanks her sister for her incredibly hard work and exhausting morning chores. Surprised by the sudden appearance of her gifted younger sibling, the older sister happily calls out Hanarin's name. Modestly dismissing the praise, the powerless sister humbly admits that doing simple chores is all she can really do. Offering the carefully prepared meal tray, she is immediately rebuffed when Hanarin coldly declares it won't be necessary. Feigning deep concern, Hanarin smoothly pivots the conversation to falsely worry about her older sister overworking her fragile health. Maintaining her deceptively sweet facade, the younger sibling gently suggests that the exhausted older sister take a short break. Shifting responsibility effortlessly, Hanarin smoothly commands her older sister to go offer the rejected meal at the sacred shrine. Stunned by the unexpected and strange directive, the older sister utters a soft gasp of mild, completely helpless confusion. Claiming the deity Futsunamatama will be pleased, the younger sibling enthusiastically thanks her naive sister for completing the task. Obediently turning away with the wooden tray, the older sister blindly walks straight into her sibling's cleverly laid trap. Watching her sister leave, a sinister and knowing smirk slowly creeps across Hanarin's previously innocent and entirely flawless face. Intercepted by curious onlookers, Hanarin is casually asked where the older sister is suddenly heading with the food tray. Playing completely innocent, Hanarin dramatically lies that her sister suddenly snatched the offering tray and headed toward the shrine. Repeating her fabricated anxiety for maximum effect, the manipulative younger sister loudly declares she has a very bad feeling. Arriving at the shrine, the terrified older sister freezes in horror upon discovering dangerous monsters invading the sacred grounds. Panicking wildly, she correctly realizes the shattered barrier stone dispelled the protective warding around the highly vulnerable village shrine. Massive, terrifying beasts angrily prowl through the desecrated site while the completely defenseless girl trembles in absolute, paralyzing fear. Analyzing the terrifying threat before her, she nervously identifies the three massive, invading monsters as highly dangerous mountain whales. Rushing onto the scene with perfect timing, Hanarin demands an explanation while pretending to urgently call Kaelin for backup. Shocked by her sibling's sudden appearance amidst the gathering, murmuring crowd, the confused older sister helplessly calls her name. Screaming in absolute terror, the arriving villagers panic upon witnessing the horrifying monsters that breached the village's protective barrier. Frantically trying to explain the broken barrier stone, the older sister expresses immense relief that her sibling is unharmed. Shattering her brief relief, Hanarin dramatically sheds fake tears and loudly accuses her stunned sibling of being incredibly awful. Sobbing convincingly, Hanarin publicly frames her sibling for cruelly destroying the barrier and luring dangerous monsters out of pure spite. A villager confirms the lie, stating they followed the supposedly strange-acting sister right into the horrifying, undeniable monster trap. Twisting the cruel narrative, Hanarin aggressively asks if her older sister has always secretly harbored deep hatred toward her. Twisting the knife, Hanarin falsely claims the betrayal stems purely from bitter jealousy over failing to become a Sayamiko. The manipulative prodigy boldly declares that her sister was utterly jealous of her superior abilities and highly prestigious engagement. Condemning her before the crowd, Hanarin loudly accuses her of breaking the barrier and intentionally endangering innocent village lives. Utterly devastated by the flawless frame-up, the older sister tries desperately to interject and defend her rapidly crumbling innocence. Clicking her tongue in hidden annoyance, the younger sister glares sharply to ensure her trapped victim has absolutely no escape. Paralyzed by the terrifying realization of her sister's sheer malice, the framed girl stares blankly in absolute, shattered shock. Murmuring villagers unanimously agree Lady Arisaw cannot escape blame after explicitly seeing her carry the highly suspicious offering tray. Denying the accusations loudly, she firmly insists that the terrible claims are simply not true. Urging calm, Hanarin fiercely declares that she and Koichi Sudo will responsibly handle her sister's disgraceful conduct. Groaning in sheer anguish, the overwhelmed girl desperately wonders why everything is suddenly going so horribly wrong. Struggling against the rising despair, she tearfully questions how her life ever came to this tragic point. Cowering miserably, she nervously explains that she only tried to sincerely offer the sacred food just now. Analyzing the dire threat, she quickly realizes that slashing at those terrifying monsters so recklessly is entirely pointless. Gripped by overwhelming determination, she fiercely vows to somehow find a desperately needed way to protect absolutely everyone. Panicking wildly, she anxiously realizes that even the innocent villagers will face tremendous danger if this deadly chaos continues. Watching the terrifying chaos unfold, she helplessly observes the massive destruction rapidly sweeping across the trembling village grounds. Suddenly noticing a strange mystical disturbance, a powerful unearthly presence begins manifesting outward from the chaotic swirling dust. As the dense smoke fiercely billows, a towering enigmatic figure completely shrouded in dark shadows slowly steps forward. Crackling with intense magical energy, the mysterious figure suddenly radiates an overwhelmingly powerful and ancient blazing divine aura. The imposing warrior steadily advances through the devastating destruction while firmly gripping a gleaming and incredibly majestic weapon. Gasping in utter disbelief, she shockingly wonders out loud if that incredibly powerful person could truly be him. Glancing down at the trembling girl, the imposing armored warrior gently asks if she is truly entirely okay. Completely stunned by his sudden incredible appearance, she gazes upward at her towering rescuer in absolute bewildered silence. Still utterly bewildered by the magical rescue, she softly stammers while desperately wondering who this incredibly mysterious man is. Gazing at her majestic savior, she quietly marvels at his deep red hair seemingly dyed in brilliant glowing vermilion. Breathless from the overwhelming intense encounter, she softly murmurs while trying to comprehend exactly who he truly is. Looking deeply into his powerful gaze, she becomes captivated by his crimson eyes that seem to burn fiery bright. Rustling gently in the fiercely blowing wind, the mysterious warrior gracefully stands tall against the chaotic roaring magical background. Staring intensely at her delicate face, the crimson-haired savior warmly declares that they have finally met today. Speaking with undeniable and powerful affection, the majestic stranger finally reveals her hidden identity by simply whispering Saki. Approaching her softly, he smiles and warmly declares that they have finally met at last. Startled by him knowing her name, she realizes they must have crossed paths somewhere before. She highly doubts forgetting a prior meeting with someone so breathtakingly beautiful in her entire life. Nervously hesitating, she immediately decides she must correct him if he has mistaken her identity entirely. Staring wide-eyed in complete utter shock, she stands frozen in place as the tense moment stretches. Suddenly, a massive violent blur of motion completely shatters the fragile stillness of the peaceful surroundings. The terrifying beast emerges from the dark shadows, immediately lunging forward with explosive and deadly speed. Springing into sudden heroic action, the brave warrior draws his shining weapon to intercept the incoming attack. He swiftly unleashes his powerful magical binding thread to trap the violently thrashing monstrous huge creature. Observing the trapped beast, she urgently notes that the massive monster regenerates completely even when deeply cut. She desperately advises him to aim directly for the glowing eyes where its magical power actually originates. Acknowledging her crucial tactical advice, he firmly confirms his clear understanding and expertly prepares his final strike. Channeling immense roaring energy into his glowing blade, he tightly grips his deadly weapon for the decisive blow. With a flawless and blindingly fast motion, he completely obliterates the terrifying massive regenerating monster instantly. Watching in absolute trembling awe, she confidently realizes there is absolutely no mistake regarding his true identity. She breathlessly identifies the incredibly skilled swordsman standing gracefully before her as the legendary Lord Suguru Urishino. Stunned by the grand revelation, she immediately confirms the swirling rumors about his return from the extermination tour. Panic suddenly surges fiercely through her stiff body as she violently realizes he is walking right towards her. Flustered and completely mentally unprepared despite his majestic grand presence, she frantically wonders what to do next. He urgently calls out Saki's precious name while closing the remaining physical distance between them very rapidly. Reaching out with profound gentle romantic concern, he carefully extends his strong warm hand to help her up. She stammers her own name in complete confused shock while staring blankly at his unexpectedly offered open hand. Looking down with deep soothing genuine sincerity, he gently asks if she is physically able to stand up. Snapping quickly back to reality with a startled loud gasp, she clumsily agrees and tries to rise up. He smoothly catches her swaying fragile body, murmuring softly about how people typically behave at times like this. Sighing with faint lingering warm amusement, he gently advises her that she should honestly just hold on tightly. Teasing her slight charming nervous hesitation, he playfully mentions that his outstretched hand currently has nowhere to go. The gathered, excited massive crowd erupts into loud cheers, enthusiastically praising Urishino for defeating the tough monster instantly. Utterly bewildered by the incredibly surreal situation unfolding entirely around her, she desperately questions if this is real. Her racing mind spins with intense confusion as she desperately struggles to understand why he would help her. A sudden, intimidating, dark, imposing shadow completely interrupts her racing thoughts and utterly shatters the brief romantic tension. Hannarin glares with intense burning jealousy, cruelly demanding why he would ever genuinely smile at someone like her. Hearing the sharply furious voice, the terrified older sister turns around in shock and quietly murmurs Hannarin's name. Boiling with absolute fury, the incredibly jealous younger sister viciously screams and demands to know the reason why. Meanwhile, in a completely different hidden dark location, a loyal servant respectfully addresses the mysterious Lord Yu quietly. Lord Yu turns around completely calmly, nonchalantly suggesting that his weary subordinate could have rested a bit longer. Apologizing sincerely for his previous teasing tone, he quickly shifts serious gears and directly asks for the findings. The respectful servant formally apologizes for the slightly delayed report before finally beginning his highly anticipated briefing session. He confirms the grim suspicions, reporting undeniable traces that the cave was destroyed by someone possessing divine power. Highlighting the incredibly faint presence of strong lingering divine power, he confidently concludes there is very little doubt. Nodding knowingly at the unfolding scene, he confidently confirmed that the situation was exactly as he originally thought. Raising his voice dramatically, he urgently demanded to know if the village people had heard the startling revelation. The crowd gasped as someone declared another culprit besides Saki had intentionally brought the terrifying monster into the village. Murmuring in shock about another culprit threatening their survival, the villagers realized the attacker possessed immensely strong divine power. Swearing fiercely upon the prestigious Urushino family name, the commanding leader promised to carry out a thoroughly exhaustive investigation. Staring silently into the tense crowd, the determined figures stood their ground while preparing for the impending chaotic aftermath. Agreeing with a quiet nod, a subordinate politely informed Lord Yu that the crucial moment had finally arrived. Stuttering nervously as she called out her own name, Saki suddenly remembered she desperately needed to thank her savior. Pausing in the quiet aftermath of the chaotic battle, the young woman reflected deeply on her miraculous, unexpected survival. Pulling his glowing hand away gracefully, the mysterious savior softly announced that the intricate healing process was completely finished. Explaining his miraculous actions calmly, he assured her that his powerful healing spell would make her feel better immediately. Gazing down at her with incredible warmth, he gently praised Saki for doing incredibly well during the terrifying ordeal. Staring up at him with wide and tearful eyes, the bewildered girl softly questioned the reason behind his kindness. Turning away smoothly, he confidently promised that he would definitely return to see her again in the near future. Watching his retreating back thoughtfully, Saki felt deeply overwhelmed by the fact that he had only ever been kind. Feeling utterly confused by his familiarity, she wondered how a stranger she just met today knew her exact name. Comforting her by speaking the exact words she longed to hear, he urged her to wait just slightly longer. As the messy blade offering festival ended, exhausted villagers loudly complained about the disastrous night of highly chaotic events. Celebrating Lord Urushino returning to investigate the cave, gossiping villagers excitedly confirmed the persistent rumors about his bride-hunting mission. Whispering enthusiastically, locals noted the noble lord explicitly expressed romantic interest in the fiercely strong shrine maiden fighting monsters. Reaching a joyous conclusion, the excited crowd confidently declared their beloved Lady Hanaran must be the chosen bride candidate. Snapping out of her deep trance, Saki screamed in shock as an annoyed villager abruptly called her by name. Apologizing frantically, the flustered girl flinched as her coworker aggressively demanded to know why she was shouting so suddenly. Ordering the startled girl to make room quickly, the busy villagers announced they had significantly more rigorous practice approaching. Watching her stumble clumsily, the gossiping women noted her recent weird behavior while dismissing her as a typical scatterbrain. Ignoring harsh complaints about her spacing out, Saki secretly wondered if that magical encounter had just been a dream. Blushing while clutching her chest, she happily admitted it would not be strange calling it a truly dreamlike night. Recalling his deeply comforting voice vividly, she melted while remembering his absolute promise to see her again very soon. Hoping Lord Yu remained at the Momoya estate, she resolved to properly thank him during their next fateful encounter. Astounded by his sharp perception, she realized he saw right through her attempts to hide the painful physical injury. Inspecting her flawlessly restored skin, she marveled at how perfectly his powerful divine magic completely cured the deep wound. Hearing her name warmly called out, she quickly turned around to see who was rapidly approaching her quiet workspace. Spotting two village women approaching, Saki patiently waited to hear their pressing concerns about the recent horrifying monster incident. Leaning forward with a serious expression, one gossiping woman lowered her voice to share a shocking little village secret. The troubled villager expressed extreme skepticism regarding the official story about the terrifying events of the recent chaotic festival. Processing the implications of the rumors, Saki nervously realized the official village narrative contained several extremely glaring logical holes. Voicing her nagging doubts aloud, the observant woman boldly asked if anyone else felt that something was terribly off. Explaining her deep confusion, the villager noted the highly suspicious initial accusation claiming Saki intentionally lured the terrifying monster. Pointing out a logical contradiction, she reminded everyone that the disgraced sister completely lacks any actual magical divine power. Agreeing with the deduction, the women mutually concluded there was absolutely no way she broke the sacred barrier stone. Questioning the previous logic, a confused voice wonders aloud why they originally suspected Saki. Recalling a crucial detail, someone points out that Lady Hanaran definitely mentioned Saki earlier. Hanging thick in the air, an undeniable silence blankets the intensely uncomfortable and tense atmosphere. Reacting with mock surprise, she softly utters a dismissive remark under her shallow breath. Feigning empathy, she questions if the baseless accusations hurt before claiming she suffers too. Begging tearfully for forgiveness, the terrified victim admits that the painful rumors truly ache. Snapping with sudden cruelty, the vicious sister demands to know who permitted her speech. Desperately stepping in, a worried onlooker begs Hanaran to stop her unexpected brutal behavior. Pleading softly with her sibling, the older sister begs Hanaran to calm her raging anger. Mocking her sister's sudden authority, the arrogant girl coldly questions if issuing orders is forbidden. Screaming her name in absolute horror, the shocked sister tries to halt the escalating violence. Glaring with deep resentment, she viciously demands to know why her sister always interferes. Groaning in unexpected pain, a painful gasp escapes as the physical tension rapidly peaks. Taunting her victim mercilessly, the cruel sibling notes how easily her sister gets carried away. Promising severe punishment, she confidently declares her dark intention to retrain her completely from scratch. Uttering her name in sheer disbelief, the mother stares blankly at the shocking violent scene. Demanding an immediate explanation, the stunned matriarch sternly asks what her daughter is currently doing. Pausing mid-strike, the aggressive girl suddenly freezes while attempting to justify her unexpected outburst. Explaining the violence away smoothly, Hanaran claims she was simply disciplining a terrible servant. Accepting the flimsy excuse immediately, the mother dismisses everyone back to their urgent chores. Whispering nervously among themselves, the bewildered servants question what is suddenly wrong with Lady Hanaran. Shaking her head in disbelief, a maid notes she never previously struck the household staff. Emphasizing the shocking reality, the terrified workers repeat that such violence never happened once. Offering a small sliver of kindness, someone quietly presents a soothing ointment for the swelling. Blaming the victim entirely, an angry maid yells that Hanaran's foul mood is her fault. Flinching from the sudden verbal attack, the battered girl absorbs the devastating emotional blow. Screaming furiously at the supposed plague-bringer, the frantic servant blames her for dragging everyone down. Gathering her shattered pride, the bruised girl slowly forces herself upward from the cold floor. Staring blankly at the ground, she struggles silently to process the overwhelming cruelty around her. Overhearing distant noise, someone curious notes that a loud commotion echoes throughout the sprawling estate. Peering curiously down the hallway, the anxious staff tries to locate the source of trouble. Arguing intensely over tacky kimonos and awful hair ornaments, the stressed staff bickers over duties. Breaking the tense silence gently, a soft voice tentatively calls out Saki's familiar name. Startled by the unexpected voice, Saki gasps softly while turning toward the sudden sound. Explaining the sudden estate-wide panic, someone reveals the Suzuno family's son is currently arriving. Realizing why everyone is flustered, the shocked listeners acknowledge the wildly sudden welcome preparations. Spotting a perfect opportunity, Saki decides she must immediately return the handkerchief to you. Scolding her arrogant nonsense, a maid reminds Saki they are strictly forbidden from the main house. Warning her severely, the staff demands she avoid ruining Hanaran's rare marriage arrangement over trivialities. Utterly confused by the marriage mention, Saki wonders aloud since Hanaran is with Lord Sudu. Compared to others, the Urashino family is a distinguished lineage governing all sword-bearers and sacred shrine maidens. The boy notes that Sudo's current social status does not even come close to matching Urashino's grand standing. Gasping in sheer disbelief, someone frantically stammers that there is absolutely no way this unbelievable situation is happening. Questioning her mother, a young girl calmly suggests that it is fine if her sister insists that much. Offering a polite alternative, the girl confidently promises to convey thanks for the handkerchief in her sister's place. Rejecting the idea immediately, someone cruelly demands to just toss her away in the storehouse or something similar. Panicking at the harsh punishment, a desperate voice cries out begging them to please wait a moment longer. Suddenly, an abrupt interruption halts the tense conversation as everyone freezes in absolute shock at the unexpected arrival. Turning her cold attention backward, the girl maliciously ponders what to do with her sister in the meantime. The atmosphere grows incredibly heavy as silent tension heavily fills the room while waiting for the next move. Mysterious footsteps echo loudly across the wooden floor, signaling the sudden approach of an incredibly important new guest. Stepping into the grand room, an imposing figure instantly commands the absolute attention of every single person present. Bowing respectfully before the newcomer, the welcoming hosts formally announce that they have been eagerly expecting his arrival. Acknowledging the highly esteemed guest, the respectful crowd humbly greets the powerful man by his revered name Urishino. The hosts immediately offer their deep apologies regarding the unexpected nature of his incredibly sudden and prestigious visit. Standing tall and composed, Lord Urishino gazes calmly over the gathering without uttering a single word in response. Declaring it an honor to have Lord Urishino visit, they express immense gratitude while humbly dismissing any inconvenience. Shock ripples through the room as someone carefully brings up the heavily anticipated subject of a marriage proposal. Nodding with absolute certainty, the esteemed guest simply confirms the grand marriage proposal with a firm positive agreement. He smoothly declares his desire to take the girl with the strongest divine power in the Momoya family. Astonished whispers erupt, celebrating the incredible honor and assuming the family head must feel deeply proud of this. When he asks to have the daughter join them, the ecstatic mother instantly agrees to call her over. Stepping forward gracefully, the chosen young girl bows deeply and quietly declares that it is an absolute honor. Her excited mother frantically urges Hanaran to come forward quickly and perfectly present herself to the noble guest. Complying smoothly with her mother, the gifted girl murmurs her agreement and steps confidently into the direct spotlight. Gazing directly at the distinguished suitor, the young maiden formally addresses him by his noble name, Lord Yu. Speaking with immense pride, she boldly introduces herself as the highest-ranking sacred shrine maiden of the family. Finishing her grand introduction perfectly, she confidently reveals her full name to everyone present as Hanaran Momoya herself. Stepping forward with immense confidence, she proudly announces her identity as the talented Momoya Hanaran. A heavy silence completely dominates the tense atmosphere as everyone waits for his crucial reaction. Smiling softly with an unreadable expression, he calmly acknowledges her introduction by politely greeting her. A sudden subtle shift visibly alters the surrounding energy as he firmly holds his ground. Confused by his unexpectedly cold response, she nervously stammers out a hesitant greeting to Lord Yu. Ignoring her growing discomfort completely, he smoothly continues speaking while moving the urgent conversation forward. Focusing on his true objective, he directly demands to know the exact current location of Saki. Shocking the entire room, he firmly states his intention to seek permission to marry the bewildered Saki. He proudly explains that Saki courageously helped him defeat the terrifying demon on that fateful day. Gasping in absolute disbelief, the mother frantically stutters while questioning what Lord Urishino is actually saying. Cruelly degrading her own daughter, the mother claims Saki is a useless and shameless, powerless fool. Continuing her vicious tirade, she admits that Saki has truly been a massive disappointment since long ago. Praising her favored child immensely, she boasts that the gifted Hanaran purified a barrier stone at 5. She loudly declares Hanaran as undeniably the strongest sheath priestess within the entire Momoya family. Smirking with absolute confidence, Hanaran falsely claims that she was the one who defeated the monster together. Attempting to exploit the situation, she arrogantly notes that the extreme darkness obscured her sister's identity. Presenting a stolen handkerchief boldly, she offers the delicate fabric as undeniable proof of her heroic presence. She manipulatively insists that the noble heir of the Urishino family should easily understand this obvious truth. Mocking his alleged feelings, she harshly warns that marrying a completely powerless sister would never be accepted. Reminding him of duty, she states that the head family governing the Sword Command ignores personal feelings. Chuckling softly, he sarcastically agrees she makes a good point while she gloats about their destined union. Overjoyed by his apparent agreement, Hanaran visibly brightens while believing he completely understands her superior position. Shattering her immense delusion instantly, he glares with absolute disgust and coldly condemns her pathetic shamelessness. Leaning closer with intense disdain, he harshly questions if she truly believed he mistook her for Saki. Interrupting her desperate stammering, he sharply declares that she still clearly hasn't understood the grave situation. Mocking her inflated ego, he demands if she honestly thinks the Urishino family desires her mediocre power. Disgusted by her vile personality, he bluntly criticizes her overwhelming arrogance while towering imposingly over her. Dismissing their shallow values, he correctly notes they are all foolishly convinced he only cares about spiritual power. Staring her down ruthlessly, he states she is entirely far from the purity expected of a sheath priestess. Continuing his verbal assault, he firmly asserts that their misguided assumptions are also completely off the mark. He brutally informs her that his massive clan has droves of people who can purify barrier stones. Delivering a final crushing blow, he coldly commands her to understand she isn't even useful as a tool. Turning his back on the utterly stunned family, he casually announces he will be taking his leave. Panicking wildly, the mother desperately begs Lord Urushino to wait while loudly questioning the confusing situation. Whispering bystanders quickly realize he didn't propose to Hanarin and recall her struggling against the terrifying monster. The gossiping crowd ruthlessly speculates that Hanarin's supposedly legendary divine power might not be impressive either. Trembling with uncontrollable rage, the humiliated prodigy viciously warns the whispering crowd to watch what they say. Losing her fragile composure completely, the furious sister screams in absolute despair at the terrifying public humiliation. Meanwhile, he gently inspects the delicate fabric, noticing the undeniably faint trace of Saki's pure divine power. Smiling with profound affection, he warmly concludes that Saki surely took immense care to preserve the magic. Breaking the heavy, expectant silence of the room, he suddenly called out firmly to his servant Akira. Responding with absolute, unwavering loyalty, Akira immediately acknowledged the sudden summons without a single moment of hesitation. Standing perfectly still in the quiet space, the loyal servant awaited his master's next crucial command attentively. Commanding his servant to find the mysterious divine power source, he received an immediate pledge of obedience. Moving swiftly through the shadowy corridors, the dedicated subordinate immediately began his urgent investigation into the mystery. Releasing a heavy, exhausted sigh, she slumped down wearily while processing the overwhelming events of the day. Staring blankly ahead, she anxiously wondered if she had properly returned the borrowed handkerchief to her savior. Cursing her pathetic weakness, she lamented fiercely that she could not even thank the man who helped her. Resigning herself to absolute uselessness, she sadly admitted that her complete lack of power made everything impossible. Clenching her fists tightly in frustration, the young woman desperately fought against her rising tide of tears. Suddenly challenging her own defeatist attitude, a fierce inner voice sharply questioned if that was truly acceptable. Agonizing over never seeing her savior again, she hated the terrible thought of failing to express proper gratitude. Whispering her own name softly, she felt a sudden surge of determined courage building deep within her heart. Sternly scolding her own hesitation, she fiercely asked herself if leaving things unresolved without giving thanks was okay. Shaking her head decisively, she aggressively declared to the empty room that she was definitely not okay. Preferring her mother's wrath over ungratefulness, she boldly resolved to face 100 scoldings just to thank him. Frantically searching her confined surroundings, the desperate girl began desperately looking for any possible hidden exit route. Startled by a sudden, unexpected noise, she gasped loudly as a strange rustling echoed through the silent darkness. Pointing decisively toward a specific direction, someone outside confidently declared that the target was definitely hidden over there. Staring at the massive, imposing structure, the searchers paused as they finally recognized exactly what it truly was. Sensing faint divine power from the storehouse, they reluctantly realized the magical Shikigami confirmed she was locked inside. Promising to do his absolute best, the powerful lord darkly asked his servant to stop his rising anger. Reacting instantly to a sudden movement above, the alert men quickly shifted their intense focus upward in surprise. Spotting something shocking near the roof, the loyal servant urgently called for Lord Yu to look over there. Staring in utter disbelief at the crumbling structure, the powerful noble gasped softly as the chaotic scene unfolded. Screaming in pure terror, the falling girl flailed wildly while Lord Yu shouted her name in absolute shock. Watching the terrifying plummet, the horrified servant yelled out frantically that the helpless young woman was rapidly falling. Leaping forward with incredible speed, the heroic lord successfully grabbed her midair and confidently declared she was caught. Landing gracefully onto the solid ground, he held her trembling body safely against his remarkably strong, protective chest. Blinking in complete, dazed confusion, the terrified girl slowly realized she had miraculously survived the deadly, terrifying drop. Sobbing hysterically, she frantically chanted endless apologies while he gently questioned why she felt the absolute need to apologize. Gently interrupting her frantic rambling, The noble lord softly insisted that he was the one who should apologize instead. Smiling warmly at the bewildered girl, he sincerely thanked Saki for keeping his precious handkerchief so incredibly safe. Explaining his perfectly timed rescue, he revealed that the lingering magical scent allowed him to track her presence. Blushing deeply at the highly intimate magical tracking method, she awkwardly agreed that the situation was extremely embarrassing. Bursting onto the chaotic scene, the horrified mother demanded answers while loudly calling out to the esteemed Urishino. Furious at the compromising sight, the vicious mother aggressively demanded to know why Saki was completely misbehaving again. Trembling violently under her mother's furious, blazing glare, the terrified girl silently braced herself for another brutal scolding. Screaming at her daughter to get away instantly, the angry matriarch was suddenly cut off by a commanding shout. Abandoning his quiet observation, the furious lord sharply criticized the noble Momoya family for hurling such unbearable insults. The man angrily condemns the household for locking such a delicate young lady inside the cold storehouse. He expresses profound disgust regarding the shameful treatment while noting that it is completely unacceptable. He harshly questions if such cruel actions truly represent the extent of the Momoya family's remaining dignity. A heavy silence falls over the shocked crowd as they absorb the devastating weight of his words. Standing firm in his declaration, he confidently announces that Saki is the only bride he desires. The gathered onlookers gasp in sheer confusion while utterly stunned by his incredibly bold and sudden proclamation. Tension quickly rises as everyone struggles to understand the meaning behind his sudden arrival and fierce declaration. Hanarin panics completely as the shocking reality of Lord Urishino unexpectedly arriving suddenly begins to settle in. Koichi loudly demands an explanation for the sudden marriage arrangement between the Momoya and Urishino families. Hanarin angrily scolds Koichi while frantically reminding him of their promise since she is his rightful fiancée. The angry host orders someone to escort the intruders to the gate for suddenly barging in loudly. He sternly rebukes them while fiercely declaring that there is a strict limit to such blatant rudeness. Listening closely from her hidden spot, Saki quietly notes that it seems incredibly noisy out there. Her companion offers to immediately prepare the carriage so they can slip out during the loud commotion. Expressing her true gratitude for his help, Saki nervously hesitates because she cannot simply leave the estate. Admitting he cannot stand leaving her alone, he gently asks the confused girl to simply believe in him. He gently invites her to blame him all she wants if she is feeling entirely too guilty. Staring at Lord Yu in wonder, she softly questions why he would go so far for her. Pushing for a deeper answer, she quietly asks why he continues to protect her with such devotion. A tender silence stretches between them as he carefully gathers his thoughts to deliver his heartfelt confession. He speaks with deep sincerity, revealing his unwavering devotion because she is someone truly special to him. Elsewhere, an angry patriarch viciously berates his terrified son by screaming that he is a worthless failure. He furiously demands to know if his son realizes the immense effort put into arranging the Momoya marriage. Trembling under the weight of his father's boiling rage, the terrified son profusely apologizes for his mistakes. Frantically defending himself, he claims innocence because the Momoya family were the ones who unilaterally canceled the engagement. Unmoved by the desperate excuses, his cruel father simply glares downward and calls him an absolute fool. He mocks his son for choosing the gifted younger sister instead of the supposedly incompetent older one. Scoffing loudly, the father declares that believing the Momoyas acted on their own just proves his uselessness. Pointing towards the door, he harshly commands his worthless son to go to the Momoya household immediately. Reminding him of his duty as the Sudu heir, he orders him to grovel and secure the engagement. The vicious father threatens that another massive failure means he will never again step onto Sudu property. Running desperately after the retreating group, Hanarin loudly begs the departing guests to wait just a moment. She screams in total frustration, demanding to know if they realize what she suffered in the Sudu household. The heavy weight of her furious outburst hangs thickly in the air as she glares at them. Admitting he never foresaw something like this, someone gently urges Lord Koichi to calm his raging emotions. Koichi remains completely stunned by the unfolding disaster while crying out about this cruel fate befalling him. Staring blankly at the sky, he wonders aloud if this tragedy is the will of Futsunamitama no Kami. Hanarin lashes out at his strangely carefree attitude, unable to comprehend how he can say such things. He calmly clarifies that their union was a political arrangement lacking any real love or personal will. He coldly explains that they simply needed each other for bloodlines and the backing of the Sudu family. Accepting the harsh reality, she bluntly acknowledged that being his chosen partner was never actually required. Pausing to gather her thoughts, she meaningfully reminded him about a significant event from their past. Staring intensely at him, she boldly questioned if Kuchi actually preferred her older sister instead. Refusing to break eye contact, the defiant girl sharply demanded to know if she was incorrect. Lowering her voice slightly, she quietly yet firmly called out the esteemed Sudu's noble family name. Standing in profound silence, the intense heavy atmosphere lingered deeply between the two completely motionless figures. Maintaining their unwavering gazes, an unspoken tension violently crackled through the absolutely quiet and still room. Breaking the suffocating silence, a sudden subtle shift in posture signaled an impending and dramatic confrontation. Raising her voice with sudden urgency, she forcefully called out to Sudu for his undivided attention. Frowning in deep confusion, he cautiously demanded to know exactly what she was trying to say. Stepping forward with absolute, unwavering determination, the ambitious young woman boldly proposed joining their powerful forces. Explaining her grand vision, she confidently claimed Kuchi and herself could finally fulfill both their wishes. Holding his intense gaze, she solemnly declared that only one single solitary method truly remained available. Suggesting they work together, she proposed a bond between the Momoya and Sudu families for peace.